How do you recover if you're a man when a relationship that you value, that you committed to, a marriage that you were in for an extended period of time ends? And it doesn't matter whether it's a committed relationship that led to engagement and you were hoping to marry, whether you were married to the person and you're going through your end separation, divorces in the future, or you are post-divorce. Men who give their absolute best experience similar emotions. We're not all the same, we're unique, but the emotions are the same. It is failing to keep our commitment. There's intense pain about that. If there is any betrayal or any slight behavior on the part of our former mate, we feel offended by that, even though we love the person, and we feel taken advantage of if you're the person that gave your absolute best and was expecting to reap the results from that. How do you move forward the emotional turmoil that you will feel if you're the kind of guy that I just described? If you're not the type of person that I just described, there's absolutely nothing I can share with you that's going to be of help. And I have the unique experience of being married 20 years, doing my absolute best. Got married when I was 24, was married 20 years, raised 2 children successfully in that marriage relationship, and unfortunately after 20 years it came to an end. What I'm going to share with you is important to keep in mind, pay attention to, because after my marriage came to an end, I wanted to be good to my future ex-wife, and so I did certain things for her to show her gratitude as the mother of my children. I didn't want to have the type of relationship where we're arguing and fighting and that bitterness, because I've seen that in other couples. Didn't want that. I was a spiritual man. I still am a spiritual person, solid person. I'm not religious. I just want to be a good person. I live with a vision, the kind of father I want to be and the kind of husband I also want to be as well. Unfortunately, that vision could not come true after 20 years. The mistake that I made that I'm going to share with you for you to avoid is I then began to view the great qualities that I had, that I put into the relationship, as being the basis upon which I was being taken advantage of. So I began to dismiss them. I began to change, let those great qualities go, and replace them with what I call marketplace traits, marketplace qualities that eventually hurt me, cost me millions of dollars because of being unfocused. And I want you to avoid that. Here's a principle I want to share with you before I get into this, because I'm going to share some things with you, a few points with you that's going to help you almost immediately. It is, if a man who wants to achieve significant success long-term in his life cannot make a decision about a woman, he cannot make a decision about his money, and he cannot make a decision about his future. Indecision in one area leads to another. It doesn't work the opposite direction though. A man who's clear about his money, who's clear about his future, can know what decision needs to be made about a woman, because he is not willing to allow that component, that unpredictable component, to ruin his decisions about his money and about his future. But the goal of this training is to, number one, help you move past the emotional turmoil that you feel that's unique to you, because I've gone through all of it. Let's start with the nature of women. Unlike podcasts or like things you may see on social media, I'm not going to bash women. No matter what their culture is, no matter what country they're from, I'm not going to do that. That won't help you. It'll only make any irritation that you feel about the person that you were with, make it worse. It won't help you heal. What I want to share with you is the original design of woman. If you understand that, you'll be able to not only discern whatever has happened in your relationship, things that you may have missed, may not have completely been able to fully comprehend or understand, but it also will help you to discern a solid, genuine woman that will be good for you, that you can attract. The only problem that you may have is if you don't heal fast enough and you're not emotionally ready, God, or you can refer to it, the universe, the flow of his spirit, will send someone good into your space. But if you're not ready, one of two things will happen. You'll miss that person who could be the exact opposite of what you experience, or if you connect with them, you'll mistreat them, because hurt people hurt people. There's 2 ways I can do this training. I can do it in a way that you're impressed by what I know, but you'll walk away and not apply any of it. Or I can share this with you in a way that you're impressed with what you already know, which you will use immediately, apply immediately, and once you're past this stage of being in pain and being hurt, you'll be able to help someone else. Not only that, you're going to be able to do it faster. Here is what the beginning was as far as the original woman. God created Adam. We were to get on that. God placed Adam in the garden with every tree desirable and gave Adam a simple command: from every tree of this garden you may eat to satisfaction, but as for the eating of the tree that's in the middle of the garden, you must not eat from it. You must not touch it, and that you do not die. Now, that was given, command was given to Adam. The next verse, God said it is not good for the man to continue by himself, based on the purpose he was given from the very beginning. Before Eve was made, Adam was told, be fruitful, become many, fill the earth, subdue it. That was the command that Adam was given. Also, from the beginning of Adam's creation, God told his son, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. That's important to understand. It's going to help you heal when I connect these two. After giving Adam the simple command, putting him in the garden with everything that he could have possibly wanted, giving him one restriction, the tree of knowledge of good and bad, then God said it is not good for man to continue by himself. The pain that you may feel, the turmoil you feel, is because that original purpose has not changed. It's part of your DNA. It is not good for you as a man to continue by yourself. But there's a criteria. There's qualifications for that. Here's what God said next. He says, I'm going to make a helper for him as a complement of him. A helper, someone who is his equal, to help him to fulfill the purpose that God gave directly to Adam. Then it says, as a complement of him. The question is, a complement means to complete. So was Adam created incomplete by God? It's the question. It's impossible. Everything that God made was good. Everything was complete. So what does it mean that he was going to make a complement of him? Even though Adam was complete as a man with his purpose, everything was about him, he was not whole. There was a spiritual side that he needed. There was motivation that he needed to complement the areas of his life that he needed to be able to focus on his purpose. That was the complement, making him whole. Thus, as he was fulfilling his purpose, stay with me, there's a purpose behind this. As he was fulfilling this purpose, naming the animals, as he was going through, the verse says, he noticed that for all animals there was a mate, but for him, but for man, there was no mate. And then at that point, the verses say, God made him fall into a deep sleep and formed a woman out of his rib. When he woke up, he was poetry, beautiful, gorgeous woman. And here's what's important to understand. He said, this one will be called woman because from man she was taken. Let's stop for a second. Men were made in God's image. Women are made in men's image. In the beginning, God communicated directly to men. That was the channel, the headship principle. Why is that important to understand? Because while they're in the garden, with everything they could possibly want, not need, want, as Eve was moving through the garden, she approaches the serpent. We have a background on that story. The serpent says to her, is it really true that God said, from every tree you may not eat? The woman corrected him. He says, no, that's not true. From every tree of the garden we may eat except for this tree, the tree of knowledge of good and bad. So God said, if you eat from it, you positively will die. Here's what's important to understand. The serpent, Satan through the serpent, said to her, you positively will not die. That was the first lie, first deception. Then he said, for God knows, and the day of your eating from it, your eyes are bound to be open, you're bound to be like God, knowing good and bad. And in most versions of the Bible, knowing is all capitalized, which means knowing as God knows, being able to direct yourself without his guidance. The question is, did Eve have any trait in her husband that she could have possibly missed? Eve was the only woman who ever existed that was as attractive, well-built as there is no other woman that has ever existed after Eve as beautiful as she was. Has there been any man that has ever existed that could match Adam? The answer is no. Adam had no flaws. He treated her flawlessly like he was supposed to, according to God's structure. She had everything she needed. The issue that we have, I want you to pay attention to, is that Satan was able to create a desire for something that did not exist. Being like God didn't exist. But the being like God meant that Eve would have been where? Above her mate, her husband. Question is, did Eve then take that information and go and talk to Adam about it? No. Here's what it says. In verse number 6, here's what it says. It says, consequently, the woman saw that the tree, the middle tree that told not to eat, was one good for food. Question is, what was it before that? Second, it was something to be longed for to the eyes. What was it before that? Yes, the tree was desirable to look upon. What was it before that? It was an ordinary tree with absolutely no fruit on it that was attractive, appealing to the eyes. It was the tree, the fruit on it had nothing, no significance except for the fact that God said, don't eat from this tree. So the devil created, through deception, a desire for something in Eve that didn't exist. So if you are a man and you have lost your partner, your mate, for any reasons that are not valid, solid reasons, that's something that you did, it's usually because she desires something that did not exist. Looking at what? Social media, listening to podcasts, listening to her female friends who are single, whatever the case is. Why am I sharing this with you? It's because if you understand that you had great qualities that you poured into your relationship, and now that relationship has come to an end, you can make the decision to hold on to those solid relations, your solid qualities for what will come in the future, because good things will come in the future. Now, let's continue. After Eve ate of the fruit, she gave some to her husband Adam. Their eyes were open. They could realize they were naked. Later on, God is walking through the garden looking for the man, calling out to him. Both of them are hiding. The man comes forward, Adam comes forward and says, we heard your voice. So I was embarrassed because we were naked. Here's what God said. This is important for you to understand. God said to Adam, from the tree that I commanded you not to eat, have you eaten? Here's a question for you. What type of question was that? An open-end question that required an explanation, or a closed-end question, yes or no? It's closed in. It's either yes, I did, or no, I didn't. What did Adam say? He said, the woman that you gave to me, she ate of the fruit, gave it to me, and so I proceeded to eat. Immediately moved the building, but the commandment was not given to the woman. It was only given to Adam. Here's what God then said to the woman. He says to her, what have you done? Is that an open-ended question or a closed-ended question? It's open-ended. He allowed her to explain. When women leave solid, good men, what's the first thing they do when you ask them why they did it? They start explaining. Why am I sharing this with you? It's because the agony you feel, the hurt you feel, the pain that you feel, you're not going to get a direct answer from the person that stepped away or that you have to step away from, because that's just not in the general nature of women. It's unfortunate. It is an after effect of sinning, deviating from God's way of doing things. Now, does that apply to all women? The answer is no, because we are all free moral agents, able to free choice. Does not apply. What does that mean then? That means that you can attract, you will attract, as long as you hold on to your great qualities, a woman who's direct, who's honest, who will love you unconditionally, and you'll be able to prove that she has integrity because she's going to communicate very directly when she's talking to you. The only issue that you have is, as men, and I did this, unfortunately, we become so embittered and angry when we want to be gracious and good to our ex that now we view all women a certain way. When I was going through the process of divorce, I tried to be gracious and nice and let my soon-to-be ex adjust to the fact that we're not going to be together. I did my absolute best. And because I was religious at the time, I was an elder in the religion at the time, she felt she owned me. And that created anger, negative anger, bitterness. It brought depression in because we would argue, and I'd feel horrible about arguing with her. and I began to slide down and view women a certain way. Then I got into the marketplace, and hopefully you haven't done this. I'm sharing with you so you don't do it. I got into the marketplace, and I'm beginning to see a side of women that it's like, wow, you all have to be handled like puppies. And I began to do that. Right now, that's a traumatic life experience, right? The going to divorce was, my response was traumatic life. Why? Because it violated my ideals, my values, my beliefs, and my identity, right? That's considered traumatic. I became a marketplace kind of guy. Have more than one girlfriend, was non-committal, emotionally unavailable, didn't matter. They saw some good things in me, and they tried to convince me that I was to be with them, but I just was not in that space anymore. And because of that, not being able to make a decision about a woman, could I make a decision about my money? I made horrible financial decisions because I didn't have mental clarity anymore. And that affected my future because I could not see my future clear in the future. I want to share that with you so you avoid that. Now, how do you do it? Give you the design so that any anger, any bitterness that you feel toward the person that that you've had to step away from, you can begin to let go of it. Because a unique woman does exist. Not all women are like Eve. And the interesting thing about Eve is that that's not her original name. Her original name was what? Woman. Isha. Man with the womb. When God brought the woman to, he says, this one Adam said, this is that last bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. This one will be called woman because from man she was taken. After they sinned, Adam changed her name to Eve. Why? Because he said she will become the mother of everyone living. If you go back to the original purpose, you can see it more clearly. Keep you from getting angry. Now, here's what you have to do. Here's point number 2 I want to share with you. Is understand the impact of time and the issues that you're going to have with how you've been programmed to view time. When you go through something extremely painful, time does not heal all wounds. If you view it that way, you will allow your emotions to simmer, thinking that in due time, they'll change. They won't. Your emotions will become worse. What happens, unfortunately, the longer you allow time to pass, the more negative the environment becomes, the interaction, the more toxic it becomes. You will begin to give up the great qualities that made you a solid guy from the beginning. Why? Because you'll view them as weaknesses instead of advantages. Instead of attributes, they're weaknesses that others will take advantage of. I did it. Here's the thing about your great qualities. Once you give them up as not being valuable or as being, something that others can take advantage of, weakness, put them on a shelf. If you put them on the shelf long enough, they disappear. It's not like when you come to your senses, you can go back and pick them up, that they're there. Then they're not, they're gone. And during the time that I went through my anger, my bitterness, my resentment, a good woman came into my personal space, solid woman came into my personal space. I just was not ready for her. And after 4.5 years of her trying to work with me, she had to step away. And when I came to my full senses, after I finally got divorced, it took me 2 years to figure myself. So here's what you need to do. I'm going to share with you exactly what needs to be done. The emotions that you go through, the anger, sometimes the feeling of guilt, the depression, those are the first 3 stages. The shock stage, shock phase slides you down. Those first 3 can be avoided with anger. And here's what I'm talking about. It is called positive anger. Anger has 2 sides. There's a positive and negative. Negative anger is what lingers, it simmers. Positive anger is momentary. There's a verse that says, it's in the book of Proverbs or Psalms, I'm pretty sure it's in Proverbs, that says a word causing pain makes anger to come up. So when you are treated poorly, justifiably, you should become angry about it. It's natural. You're designed that way. Here is how positive anger works. Positive anger allows you to make a decision that frees you from the source of the pain. If it's a relationship and you did your best and you had to step away from it, positive anger is fed by disgust. It's fed by your sense of justice not being satisfied. You make a decision, you step away. That is as effective as positive anger is, but it's always short. Any anger after that becomes bitterness and becomes resentment, and it hurts you. It becomes a toxic emotion that will crush you and make your emotions, your negative emotions, they'll amplify them. Positive anger. Here's what else positive anger does. Positive anger, and there's a skill I teach called mapping that I'm not going to go into right now, but positive anger allows you to forgive. That sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. Because positive anger recognizes, number one, the decision needs to be made, but it also recognizes that it needs to separate you from the source of the pain and then protect you. To protect you, you must forgive what the other person has done, not for them, for you. Now, that's important to understand. There's a verse in the book of Mark that says, whatever you're asking God, know that He's given it to you in advance. But here's what it says. It says that while you stand praying, it says forgive whatever you have against anyone, so that your Father in heaven may also forgive you. It doesn't matter what has happened in your relationship, really, at the end of the day. Why? Because all of us are flawed. And you never know, the person that you have to step away from a year, 2 years from now, as long as you maintain your great qualities, be the great person that you are, they'll look back and they'll say, how did I do that? How did I mess up that relationship? But by that time, you'll be gone. Lessons are learned in life two ways: through our own personal development, self-motivated. Lessons also learned through painful experiences that we have because of what we didn't know. That's number two. You have to compress time, go through the stages of your pain, compress time. Positive anger allows you to forgive. Once you are able to move forward with forgiveness, all your great qualities stay with you. And they prepare you for what's going to come next. Because I will guarantee you, this does not ever fail. The universe, you can call it the universe, you can call it God's law of sowing and reaping, you can call it karma, will send someone in your private space, in your environment, that's your soulmate. That's the person for you. It's not whether it's going to happen. It's whether when it happens, when the opportunity happens, whether you're ready for it. Let me prove that by sharing this one last thought with you. After God made Eve, formed the woman, pay attention to this. It says, and God brought her to the man. Adam did not have to go searching and looking for it. Your outstanding qualities, your core of who you are, growing from this experience, your pain, grow from the pain, don't let it crush you, will put you in a space of mental clarity, emotional balance, and you will attract the type of woman that you deserve. Now, do you have to look for her a little bit? Yes. Perceive who she is? Yes. But the universe is looking for you when you're not looking. And it will happen as if it's by accident. It would, depending on where you look, in the United States, whatever the case is, right? Based on women don't want to be approached. I get that. She'll be a person that communicates to you non-verbally that she's open to you approaching her, if that's the case. So the great qualities that many of you have taken decades to develop. You don't just wash them because of a woman. Here's the last verse I want to share with you. I read this verse several times a week. This is your purpose today as a man. It says, the inheritance from fathers, it's in the book of Proverbs 19, the inheritance from fathers is a house and wealth. A house, the physical asset. It is the cash, it's the real estate, it's what your family can put their hands on. Wealth is spiritual. Wealth is a high energy result. High energy results cannot flow to a low energy source. That's why you cannot hold on to anger and bitterness and resentment. You cannot become wealthy in that frame of mind. Wealth is spiritual. Therefore, it's spiritual, mental, emotional. It is your work ethic that other people see, especially if you have kids, see you engaged in. Here's what the rest of the verse says, though. It says, inheritance from fathers is a house and wealth. You can read it in any version of the Bible. The version of the Bible that I read is the New World Translation, 1984 edition. The inheritance from father is the house and wealth, but it says, but a discreet wife, a genuinely good, solid woman, is from Jehovah. That's what it says. Do your part. God will do his part, sending somebody to you. If this training was beneficial to you, if it allowed you to set your mind to move forward, despite whatever pain you may be experiencing or you have experienced, you can subscribe to my channel. This is the kind of content that I put this YouTube channel together for achievers, to help achievers, leaders, contributors, male or female, get back on track when you go through something that's extremely painful. God bless.